10,000 arrests. $9 billion stolen. A major American hospital bankrupt. And the Democrat governor and mayor who tried to stop federal agents from exposing it, they're now under federal investigation. This isn't some third world country or banana republic. This is Minneapolis, January 2026. And what you're about to see is the blueprint for how woke progressive governance collapses an entire city. And the worst part, it wasn't an accident. It was the plan. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, celebrating yet another day in the Trumpian golden age that is officially 1 year old today. A single year that has literally changed the entire world, and you are the ones who made that possible because of what you did back in November 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. The numbers are being called astonishing. Yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire political establishment. More than 10,000 criminal illegal aliens have been arrested in Minneapolis alone since President Trump's second term began 1 year ago today. 3,000 of those arrests happened in just the last 6 weeks. We're talking murderers, rapists, child predators, and what Noem called incredibly dangerous individuals who were killing Americans, hurting children, and raining terror in Minneapolis. It's called Operation Metro Surge. It is the single largest federal immigration operation in American history. Nearly 3,000 ICE agents, Border Patrol officers, and federal investigators have descended on the city of Minneapolis, not for a photo op, not for mere symbolism, but for justice. Cool, hard justice. And that justice is reaching to the very top of Minnesota's corrupt and feckless government. Both Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey are now officially under Department of Justice investigation for conspiring to obstruct federal law enforcement. And you need to let that sink in to really appreciate and understand what's going on here. While MS-13 gang members and cartel operatives were being taken off their streets, Walz and Frey were allegedly working to stop the arrests. I've seen the mentality with my own eyes. I've got Facebook friends excoriating ICE, cheerleading the protesters because they believe the Trump administration is terrorizing vulnerable communities. That's the term they use to sort of gloss over their imagination to try to understand what's going on here. Vulnerable communities. I mean, the level of gaslighting here challenges the whole notion of basic sanity, a basic cognitive health. Again, forget the fact that they're here illegally. Forget that. The Department of Homeland Security, the only official numbers we have, has found that 70% of these arrests are of individuals with criminal charges or convictions. Don't listen to a word from the legacy media that told you that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, right? That told you that that Kamala Harris was going to win in a landslide. Forget what they say. The only official numbers we have is from the DHS, and they claim 70% of those arrested are some pretty nasty people with some vicious criminal offenses. But that said, as Border Czar Tom Homan said from day one, literally even before January 20th, if ICE and Border Patrol agents have to go into neighborhoods looking for these violent offenders precisely because of sanctuary city policies, then they're going to arrest anyone and everyone who's around them who happens to be illegal as well, regardless of whether or not they have criminal records. This is all Tampon Tim's fault. If he simply honored federal agents' detainer requests to keep illegal migrants who've been arrested in police custody so they can apprehend them and return them to their country of origin rather than releasing them into the general public. If Tim Walz simply allowed federal agents to go into the jails and arrest illegal migrants convicted of crimes, none of this would be happening. They wouldn't be going door to door. Basically, woke leftists are upset that the Trump administration called their bluff, the very bluff of these feckless, pathetic so-called leaders in Minnesota, and now those leaders are themselves under federal investigation. But of course, the arrests are only half the story, because while Walz and Fry were crying about immigration enforcement against our vulnerable communities, federal investigators uncovered what many are calling the single worst case of industrial-scale welfare fraud in American history. We're not talking a few bad actors here, isolated incidents. Industrial-scale fraud. Okay, we're talking upwards of nearly $10 billion. That's billion with a B, of taxpayer money stolen in Minnesota. Federal prosecutors have charged 86 people, 78 of whom are from Minnesota's Somali community, in massive schemes that weaponize COVID relief programs, Medicaid, autism therapy funding, child care subsidies, layering centers. The Feeding Our Future scandal alone, over $1 billion in fake meals for children who never existed. The Housing Stabilization Services program, designed with a $2.6 million budget, it exploded from $2.6 million to over $100 million in a matter of months, most of it fraud. And if you could believe it, it gets worse. The societal degeneration that's engulfing Minneapolis is now causing institutions like hospitals to collapse. Hennepin Healthcare, the safety net hospital serving Minneapolis, just sent an emergency memo to staff. They're in the hole for $50 million. They need to find $50 million in cuts in the first quarter of this year just to keep their doors open. Their cash position is as negative gets. They've lost money 7 of the last 8 years. And do you know why? Technically, it's called rising uncompensated care. Rising uncompensated care. That's a euphemism for treating massive numbers of illegal migrants who can't and won't pay. But here's the kicker, and you're going to love this. While the hospital teeters on bankruptcy, they still employ, I kid you not, they still employ a chief equity officer making nearly $360,000 a year, whose stated priority isn't healing sick people, but reducing health disparities and fighting racism as a public health crisis. This is the very definition of get woke, go broke. But the irony here is this isn't an accident. This societal degeneration is a choice. It's deliberate. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Take a guess at what this is. This is absolutely amazing. I'll give you a hint. The older we get, the less we hold on to heat. So imagine being stranded in a broken down car in the middle of the night and having to walk for help. You know, a simple rainstorm, even in the summer, that could mean hypothermia. And so that is where this little beauty comes in. I'm going to bring it out. I kid you not. This is a full-size, heat-reflective emergency sleeping bag that actually fits into the palm of your hand. I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely amazing. And you heard it right. I mean, it's an emergency thermal sleeping bag that can keep you warm down to Arctic temperatures. It's waterproof. It's windproof. It's bright orange, as you can see, so you could be spotted in a disaster. And look at this thing. It's like 7 feet long, 3 feet wide. It's incredible, but it fits in your glove compartment. I've never seen anything like this. Sierra Madre, the genius creators of this emergency sleeping bag, made it small enough to fit in your pocket, your glove box, your junk drawer, your go bag, whatever. But it packs such an amazing punch. I sweat in it anytime I get into it. It's amazing. And I made sure to get a whole bundle of them for all my family to keep in their glove compartments. And now you can too. This week, the Patriots over at Sierra Madre have to clean out their warehouse before a new shipment arrives for the new year. So they're marking these puppies down over 59%. So you heard that right, 59%. Click on that link below and get one each for your whole family and save a bundle before the sale ends. Oh, and I almost forgot, the 10-pack, it ships free. So you're double your savings. So don't wait. I mean, these aren't available in any stores or big box retailers. And the only place you can get this warehouse clean out deal is if you click on that link below right now. Social critic Chris Bray has a very good piece on his Substack analyzing what he calls blue zone collapse. And what Bray argues is that the implosion of progressive cities isn't catastrophic. It's not dramatic like a Hollywood explosion or the way a building demolition looks like. Instead, it's a slow, grinding social and cultural erosion where government and public agencies technically exist, but become functionally useless while demanding ever higher taxes, which only ends up causing more and more residents to leave. It's very interesting because he argues that the pattern is everywhere. So, for example, in 2019, California's East Contra Costa Fire Protection District had been gutted to just 10 firefighters covering 250 square miles. So when a house fire broke out in Bethel Island, the average response time was 14 minutes for the first engine to arrive. The fire spread to multiple homes and burned for 3 hours before being controlled. But technically, the fire department still existed. Vallejo, California, cut its police force in half after the 2008 financial crisis, from 150 officers to fewer than 8. The result? Police officers end up killing 20 people between 2009 and 2014, an extraordinarily high number for a small city. In 2012 alone, there were 6 fatal shootings by police officers. The understaffed, overwhelmed department became more violent, not safer. Los Angeles had 3,400 firefighters for 2.5 million people back in the 1960s. Today, with almost double the population, 4 million, the city has actually lost firefighters. They have just 3,300 firefighters and fewer fire stations, which helps explain why an entire historic neighborhood burned down to the ground in the Palisades fires. Detroit, during its crisis years, police had a 50% chance of showing up within an hour if you were shot or stabbed. It was a 1 in 2 chance that they would show up within an hour. But the key here is that this police department still technically existed. So there's no literal collapse in these institutions, but these institutions are nothing but a shell of what they used to be. Minneapolis, if you don't know, actually legally requires 731 sworn police officers by city charter. They haven't had that number in years. They're not even at 500 right now. But it's a requirement in their city charter. But it's a requirement that's basically ignored by Democrat politicians. And we haven't even mentioned the potholes and basic urban infrastructure that's deteriorating and decaying literally everywhere in blue cities. And what Bray notes here is that there's a doom loop to all of this, what he calls the collapse formula. Democrat regimes impose higher confiscatory taxation while offering less and less services, which causes more and more residents to leave. The more residents that leave, the more radical left the city gets. And the more radical left the city gets, the more confiscatory taxes they impose for less and less services. And the whole thing continues to spiral. And the key here is that government in these deep blue cities, it doesn't cease to exist. It's still collecting taxes, more than ever, in fact. It doesn't cease to exist, but government just becomes increasingly incompetent at performing its most basic responsibilities while extracting more money from taxpayers. San Francisco illustrates this pattern perfectly. Yes, you can still find vibrant neighborhoods and pleasant streets, but the decay is spreading. The functional parts are shrinking, and the trend line points in only one direction. Both realities coexist. Some things don't suck, but the overall system does. The overall system is failing. This isn't a black swan event. It's a decades-long grind where the presence of some things that still work becomes the excuse to ignore systemic collapse already underway. This is what blue zone collapse looks like. Not a dramatic Hollywood implosion. It's a slow, agonizing grind that increases in societal despair and degeneration. And Democrat politicians are themselves trapped in a doom loop of their own making because they've had virtual monopolies over these urban areas for decades. So there's no one else to blame but themselves. But of course, politicians can't do that. So they found that by blaming systemic racism, they're able to exonerate themselves from blame, all the while continuing to tax the hell out of their dwindling populations and enrich themselves in the process. So when Secretary Noem says ICE is restoring peace and public safety, she's not exaggerating. Federal agents are doing what Walz and Fry refused to do: remove violent criminals, investigate massive fraud, and restore the rule of law. The uncomfortable truth progressive politicians don't want you to see: President Trump's enforcement operations might be the only thing preventing Minneapolis from complete and total fiscal and social collapse. That's not Nazism or authoritarianism. That's called rescuing a failing city from leaders who choose ideology over their own citizens. Trump is indeed making America great again. Only time will tell if blue enclaves like Minneapolis will experience that renewal as well.